Okay, let's get right into it. What if pretty much everything we've been told about being sick is, well, wrong? Today, we're going to break down the big ideas from Raymond Francis's book, Never Be Sick Again. And trust me, it proposes a way of looking at health that might just flip everything you thought you knew on its head. So right off the bat, the book hits us with a huge puzzle. The United States spends more money on healthcare per person than any other country on the entire planet. So you'd think we'd be the healthiest people around, right? Well, not even close. The book points to World Health Organization data that ranks the US health system way down at 37th. Something is clearly not adding up, and that disconnect is where this whole story begins. And a huge part of the problem, as Francis sees it, is how we even think about health. I mean, think about it. Do you just accept things like allergies, feeling tired all the time, or getting a few colds every year as normal? This book argues that no, they're not normal. They're actually signs that your body is struggling. We tend to think that as long as we're not stuck in bed, we're healthy. But that is a dangerously low bar to set for ourselves. So how did the author, who was a chemist, by the way, not a doctor, come to these conclusions? Well, this wasn't just some theory he cooked up in a lab. It all started because of a personal health disaster that basically forced him to find his own answers. It all started when he was 46. He began feeling really sick, tired and run down. His doctor just brushed it off, saying, "You're just getting older." But things kept getting worse and worse. And then a prescribed medication pushed his body right over the edge. It caused complete liver failure. He was literally at death's door, and the system he had trusted had completely failed him. So this crisis, it became his personal laboratory.
So from that near-death experience, he used his science background to come up with a totally new model for health. And it's an idea that's so simple, it's actually revolutionary. It just cuts right through all the confusion of the thousands of different diseases we hear about.
Okay, so here is the single biggest idea in the whole book. There is only one disease, and that disease is cellular malfunction. That's it. So it doesn't matter if it's called heart disease or diabetes or arthritis. The book's claim is that these are not different illnesses at all. They're just different symptoms of the exact same root problem. Our cells are not working the way they're supposed to. So the next logical question is, why do our cells start to malfunction? Well, according to this theory, it all boils down to just two things. On one hand, you have deficiency. Your cells are not getting enough of the good stuff they need to work properly. And on the other hand, you have toxicity. Your cells are basically being poisoned by things that damage them. Every single health choice we make every day either helps or hurts on one of these two fronts. And to really hammer home that toxicity idea, he gives us this incredible metaphor. He talks about something called free radicals, which are basically these unstable molecules from things like pollution and processed foods, and he compares the damage they do to rust on metal. It's a slow, steady corrosion that weakens our cells over time, making them old, weak, and likely to break down. Okay, so that's the theory. Cellular malfunction is the one disease, and it's caused by deficiency and toxicity. But what do we actually do about it? Well, the book gives us a really practical framework. It organizes our life choices into 6 key areas, or pathways, that directly affect our cells. And here they are, the 6 pathways. Nutrition is all about what you feed your cells. The toxin pathway is about protecting them from harm. Then there's the psychological pathway, recognizing that stress and our thoughts can actually cause physical damage. The physical pathway covers things like exercise and rest. He even talks about a genetic pathway, arguing our choices can affect which of our genes get turned on or off. And finally, the medical pathway, which looks at how our healthcare choices can either help or hurt our cellular health. Let's just zoom in on one of these for a second to see how this works in the real world. Let's take the toxin pathway. Now, you might think of toxins as, big, scary industrial chemicals, but the book says they are hiding in plain sight, in places you would never expect. Let's just start with a number. 70. According to an FDA study that the book cites, 70 is the number of different pesticide residues that were found in something as common as frozen French fries. I mean, that's a pretty shocking example of how toxins can sneak into our bodies through a super common food. And it doesn't stop there. The book points out they're everywhere. The chemicals in antibacterial soap that we absorb through our skin, the chlorine we breathe in during a hot shower, the stuff that leaches into our food from plastic packaging, and of course, all the artificial additives in processed foods. The argument is that all these little daily exposures really add up and create a huge toxic burden on our bodies. All right, now we get to what might be the most controversial part of the book, the medical pathway. The perspective here is a pretty sharp critique of the modern medical system itself, framing some of its most common practices as potential sources of harm. The author argues that the harm can start with just the diagnosis. He makes this wild comparison, saying the intense fear and stress from being told you have a terrible disease can be as physically damaging as a voodoo curse. It's a powerful statement on just how deeply the mind and body are connected. And then the critique moves on to physical harm. Citing data from medical journals, the book presents this absolutely staggering number. An estimated 225,000 deaths in the US every single year are caused by medical care itself, things like bad reactions to drugs and errors in hospitals. And if you're still not convinced, he points to this really strange data. In a few different places around the world, when doctors have gone on strike, the local death rate has actually dropped. In one case in Israel, by 55%. And when the strikes ended, the rates went right back to normal. It's a provocative correlation, to say the least. So, after laying out this pretty heavy critique, the book pivots. It asks the most important question of all. If the normal approach of just naming symptoms and treating them with drugs has these massive flaws, then what are we supposed to do? What's the alternative path? And the answer, the ultimate message of this whole book, isn't some new magic pill or complicated procedure. It's much simpler and much more powerful. It's a total shift in our mindset. And here it is, the big, powerful central idea. Health is a choice. According to this philosophy, sickness isn't something that just randomly happens to you. It's the end result of thousands of tiny choices you make every single day about what you eat, how you think, and the way you live your life. And this idea is perfectly captured in an endorsement from Dr. Bernie Siegel that's featured in the book. It's really a call to action. It's about stopping the outsourcing of our well-being and becoming the person who's actually in charge of our own health. Which leaves us with one final big thought to chew on. This whole theory, one disease, two causes, puts all the power squarely back in our hands. So if every meal, every thought, and every action is a direct message you're sending to your cells, what kind of story are you telling them today? And more importantly, what story are they going to tell tomorrow?